In the Great Tribulation period, three persons will influence world events in a very distinct way. And these three persons are Satan, the future ruler of Europe, and the Antichrist. And this is the Trinity of evil, which stands in great contrast to the Trinity of the living God. Now, the time when these people will appear is getting closer and closer, and therefore many Christians are increasingly asking themselves questions like, who is the Antichrist? What does the Bible say about the future ruler of Europe? And what does the mark of the beast look like? This is the mark that without which no one will be able to buy or sell. It's associated with the number 666. We'll deal with the mark of the beast in a little bit. But first I want to explain who these three persons are who embody the Trinity of evil, how they work together, and what effects this will have on people. In Revelation chapter 13, all three are mentioned. We have Satan the dragon, then the beast that comes out of the sea, and the beast that comes out of the earth. Why are the two great agents of Satan actually called animals? Because morally they behave like animals, and because they have no relationship at all with the living God in heaven. In Revelation chapter 12, we read of a great fiery and red dragon that has 7 heads and 10 horns. And verse 9 makes it unmistakably clear who that is, for there it says, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan. In the middle of the tribulation period, a mighty battle takes place in heaven. Angels of light fight there against Satan the dragon and against the angels of darkness. What is the result? Now, Revelation 12, verse 9, there it says in the complete verse, and the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. Now, this will be a unique and mighty event. Satan, the great enemy of God and the murderer of man, will be thrown down to earth with his great army of demons. And through this, there will be an invasion of the occult and a worldwide seduction, the like of which has never been seen before. And therefore, will be the worship of humans also, of other humans, idolatry, total control, and terrible oppression. All this will come about. Now, the violence of diabolical and demonic darkness will be unleashed here on earth in full measure. Evil will come to unrestrained fulfillment, we may say. And by the way, the following is very interesting. Jesus Christ publicly ministered here on earth for about 3.5 years. He showed people the love of God and did good to them again and again. And soon Satan will be at work here for about 3.5 years, and he will plunge many people into disaster and eternal ruin. And this is a great contrast that couldn't be greater. During the Great Tribulation period, there are two great chief agents of the devil. That is the beast that comes out of the sea and the beast that rises up out of the earth. Now, who are these two persons? The beast that comes from the sea is the ruler or dictator of the future Roman Empire. Roughly speaking, this is the future ruler of Europe. The sea symbolically speaks of the unrest of the wicked and of the sea of nations. Revelation 17, we see that. And in the middle of the tribulation period, there will be a huge worldwide unrest due to anarchy and chaos. And Satan takes advantage of this worldwide chaos to give one man his power and throne and great authority. And this means in the middle of the great unrest, a strong man suddenly arises, and that people long for him and his strength. And this man will rule with satanic power. And his government is characterized by total control, terrible violence, and moral darkness. But the animal does not only stand for a person, it also is linked to a realm that has already existed, that has ceased to exist, and that will exist again. Very interesting. And this description applies exactly to the Roman Empire that existed at the time of Jesus. It was fallen for a long time, and now it has been revived today in the form of the European Union. Rome is the city on 7 mountains, and these 7 mountains are specifically mentioned in Revelation chapter 13 in connection with the beast. Very interesting. But right now, we want to continue to focus more on the person. Now, this future dictator of Europe, he rises from the abyss and is given authority by the devil to rule for 42 months. And that is exactly 3.5 years. And he's to exert tremendous influence worldwide. Now, during this time, he will make an alliance with the people of Israel and their king, that is the Antichrist. And in Daniel 9, verse 26, this first fearsome beast is called the Prince who is to come. And it's characterized by strength, imposing size, and political and economical power. Now, at the same time, he is tremendously brutal. Moreover, he blasphemes God and his saints. One can only say, woe to those who will live under his rule. Now, the second beast rises from the earth, and the earth, in contrast to the sea of nations, stands for the land of Israel. And this man is a Jew who will rule over Israel. He is the Antichrist who at some point sits in the temple and claims to be God. And he is also more often called the false prophet. So he is a religious leader and the greatest deceiver and esoteric person who has ever lived. He looks like a lamb, but he talks like a dragon. And his words are satanically inspired. He is the exact opposite of Christ, the true Lamb of God. Yet he imitates God and God's servants. Now, for example, as a false prophet, he lets fire fall down from heaven. And this is similar to Elijah, the true prophet of God, who proved to the apostate people that the Lord is the living God in heaven. Now, the Antichrist does also everything he can to get people to worship the Roman ruler. To do this, he uses his supernatural abilities. He will literally perform miracles and signs. Among other things, he will take a picture of the Roman ruler and then give this picture the breath of life. You have to imagine what that means and what a sensation that will be. He will also cause the image to be able to speak. Imagine what that means. So we see that these are really extremely occultic practices. Next, he will use all means necessary to ensure that many people worship the image and accept the mark of the Roman ruler. The totalitarian system that will then prevail will not tolerate any dissent. Whoever refuses to worship the image must die. And this is similar to the image of Nebuchadnezzar at the time of Daniel in the Old Testament. That's interesting to see the parallel. And whoever does not accept the mark can neither buy nor sell. The Bible already describes the Antichrist in several places in the book of Daniel. Now, furthermore, in the New Testament, he is also called the son of destruction, or the man of sin, or the lawless one. Many people living in the Great Tribulation period will either be impressed by the power of the ruler of Europe or by the seductive religiousness of the Antichrist. And these people will then follow them. Both men are under the total influence of the devil and are ruled by him. Now, Satan, who is the dragon, the European ruler, and the Antichrist, they form an anti-trinity, so to speak, and this is a trinity of evil. This is in direct contrast to the Trinity of God, and their aim is to erase all memory of the living God and to bring humanity under their control. And this is exactly what the mark of the first beast is supposed to serve. What is this mark all about? Now, what can we say about it today from a biblical perspective? In Revelation chapter 13, in verse 16 and 17, we read that men are caused to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark that is the name of the beast or the number of its name. And then it says directly afterwards, this calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. 666. Now, if you look at the context of these verses, you will see that the mark is not the mark of the Antichrist, but the mark of the dictator of Europe. It is he who wields tremendous political and also economical power during the Great Tribulation and is supported by the Antichrist. Europe is really heading for a cruel dictatorship, the likes of which world history has never seen. And there will be absolute control and brutal exercise of power during that time. Now, the Bible doesn't exactly tell us what the mark of this ruler will look like or what it will consist of. And therefore, we have to be careful not to get carried away and speculate too much about it. On the other hand, though, due to technological developments and digitalization, we can imagine what it could look like in practice, meaning how it could be possible that people are suddenly excluded from buying or selling if they don't fulfill certain conditions. Now, for several years already, more and more people have voluntarily had microchips injected or implemented under their skin. And such a chip is supposed to replace business cards, keys, means of payment, and the like. It should thus make many things easier and at the same time provide more security. Now, in any case, this is a very interesting development that makes people sit up and take notice. At the same time, planned projects like ID 2020 are heading in a similar direction. A powerful alliance of corporations and public authorities is working on a transnational digital identity for all people. Now, officially, of course, this development is meant only to create more equality and to help the poor people. But of course, one must not forget that this also would make it very easy to control people at the same time. And the digital vaccination certificate, which has been pushed more and more, is also heading in this direction. There have never been such extreme developments on this scale in the history of mankind. And of course, the question arises to what extent these developments are connected with the mark of the beast or are the precursors of it. What do we know about the mark? Now, the Greek word rendered mark in some Bible translations also means brand, engraved mark, or bite of a snake. Interesting. And this makes it clear the mark is not simply an imprint that can be quickly removed or washed off. It's a permanent mark. And this mark is placed either on the right hand or on the forehead. Incidentally, it apparently contrasts with the seal of God that God will give to believers during the tribulation period, which we see in chapter 7 and 9. Now, the number associated with the mark and the name of the dictator is also very interesting. In the symbolism of numbers that we find in the Bible, 7 is the number of perfection or completeness, and 6, on the other hand, speaks of imperfection. Now, in addition, the number 6 is also often linked to the evil work of man. Think of Goliath, David's opponent, who was 6 cubits and a span tall. Nebuchadnezzar was the first ruler in the times of the nations, and he set up a stage show for worship. There was an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 6 cubits. Also interesting. Now one can say the number 666, that is 3 times the 6 shows the complete revelation of evil in a human being. That might be the spiritual meaning. And we must not forget, the great dictator of Europe will be divinely worshipped and will blaspheme the true God. When someone accepts his mark, it means that he submits to this beast. And this has terrible consequences. These people will be afflicted with awful sores. They will experience the terrible wrath of God, and they will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb, says Revelation chapter 14. Now God has the last word, and that's wonderful. He will triumph over evil in his time. He will glorify himself through it, and that is the wonderful thing. This is what will happen in the great final of the tribulation period. The trinity of evil, made up by Satan, the European ruler, and the Antichrist, will eventually, with the help of demonic powers, gather all the kings of the earth to Armageddon for the battle on the great day of God the Almighty, Revelation 16. And this will be a massive gathering that we can hardly even imagine. But then comes the great victory of God. Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, will appear from heaven and overcome and destroy this huge army. And after that, the beast and the false prophet, the European dictator and the Antichrist will be thrown alive into the lake of fire. Satan will also end up in this terrible place about 1,000 years later, after he has rebelled against God one final time. He too will be thrown into the lake of fire. And that shows us God is above all. From the beginning, he already knows the end. His will does come to completion. He will do all his delight. At present, Jesus Christ is sitting at the right hand of God. 2,000 years ago, man crucified him. When he appears in great power and glory, he will bring judgment on his enemies and establish his kingdom of peace. He will finally get the honor he deserves here, and we look forward to that.